sitting here in Bangkok, Thailand, and this is my living room. So this is basically my gym here. This is where I usually do my bodyweight workouts. It's a nice open floor space. You can see I got a pull-up bar and my suspension straps hanging in the doorway. And I got a couple of yoga blocks, chairs, and here I have a vest that I also occasionally use, but I usually actually don't need to use a weighted vest because I just don't need to use it. The exercises are hard enough. All right, guys, well, let's jump in. So basically, I was a special operations guy, and when I went through training, that was way back in 1999, so that was 26 years ago. You know, the training back then was basic. It was simple. Basically, everything, like every single day, Monday through Friday, we did three things. We ran, we swam, and we did calisthenics. So what I'm going to talk about today is how we did our calisthenics. We did, you know, so we basically stuck to basic calisthenics that you're probably familiar with, especially if you use my workouts. And what we did not do is we didn't do any gymnastics type stuff. Like we never did muscle ups. We didn't do front levers, back levers. We didn't do one-arm push-ups actually. We actually didn't do pistol squats. So for the most part, we stuck to basic calisthenics that you're probably already familiar with. And today, what I'm going to talk about is which of those calisthenics we use the most. All right, so all the calisthenics they were pretty high rep, high volume workouts, right? So we did stuff for a lot of repetitions and high volume all throughout the day, all throughout the week. And that's really what made you sort of like a lean, mean fighting machine, right? Like maybe you weren't like super strong on the bench press or a back squat and stuff like that, but you could work all day long, right? So it just developed like really athletic, functional, sort of lasting strength and stamina, which is what you want in the military. All right, so how did we do our calisthenics? Like I said, every single day we had to run, we had to swim, and we had calisthenics. For the calisthenics, we usually had like a 1-hour session that was led by an instructor, and he would do the calisthenics and you would follow him. And he would usually just pick whatever calisthenics he was best at, and he would try to smoke you, right? So, and then those cal sessions were usually about 45 minutes to an hour long. They wouldn't always do it with you. Sometimes they would just tell you what to do and then you had to try to do it. And for those cal sessions, we call those cal sessions, cals being short for calisthenics. For those cal sessions, the variety was pretty wide. But today, like I said, I'm gonna talk to you guys about the main calisthenics that we use pretty much every single day. And you can break up the movements into pushing, pulling, legs, and core, right? For core, we did a bunch of sit-ups, a bunch of flutter kicks, and a bunch of hello darlings, right? Hello darlings is where like you open and close your legs. I'm not going to talk about the core exercises today because I actually don't think that's not the best way. It's not a great way for the average person to develop core strength. And the reason is that I think a bunch of flutter kicks and sit-ups and hello darlings, yes, they're going to strengthen your core, but they're also going to tighten your hip flexors. And that's not really what you need if you're already spending several hours a day sitting, which most of us are. You know, for special operations trainees that are running and swimming all day long and they're 20 years old, you can get away with that kind of stuff. But I think we'll do a separate live at some other time to talk about the best way to strengthen your core. All right, so core exercises are out. So that basically leaves pushing, pulling, and legs. And And I'm gonna start with basically, aside from the cal sessions, one of the ways that we did our calisthenics is we had what were called ins and outs, right? So every time you walked into the schoolhouse, you had to do some exercise. Every time you left the schoolhouse, you also had to do some exercise. And that changed basically depending on the day of the month. So if it was an odd day, like the 1st or the 3rd or the 5th or the 7th, then on the way in, you would do 50 push-ups. Of course, the numbers changed as you progressed through the courses. But towards the end, it was 50 push-ups. 51 actually, because you did one for teamwork. So you would do 51 push-ups every time you went into the schoolhouse. Every time you left, you would do, and then on the even days, on the 2nd, on the 4th, on the 6th, you would do Chinese push-ups. And the Chinese push-ups, I'll demonstrate that, is kind of like an overhead pressing exercise that is, it's mostly like a shoulder and a tricep exercise. Like I said, I'll demonstrate that. So every time you came into the schoolhouse, you either did push-ups or Chinese push-ups. Every time you left the schoolhouse, you would do either pull-ups or chin-ups. And again, as you progress through the course, or the courses, the numbers would increase. So right there, you had a way of building that work volume throughout the day and then also throughout the week, because that stuff really starts to add up. All right, so every day you had a cal session about 1 hour. You also had ins and outs, and then also the instructors basically, like, whenever they would just harass you all day long. And what they would basically do is they would just say drop, and anytime an instructor said drop, you had to do either. You know what? On the even days, you didn't do Chinese push-ups, you did dips. It was 21 dips. For the drops, if an instructor said drop, everybody would have to get down and do push-ups, and you would do team push-ups, anywhere from 30 to 50 depending on where you are in training, right? So you do 50 push-ups together as a team, 51 including the one for teamwork. And that was on the even days. On the odd days, if an instructor said drop, you would do Chinese push-ups. So you would basically, between the running, the swimming, the 1 hour of calisthenics, the ins and outs, and the constant drops, you were just working all day long with high volume, high repetition training. And it made all of us actually really, really strong. It takes time. You're not going to get super strong within like a couple of months. You'll get pretty strong in a couple of months, but it was really like over the course of a couple of years of doing that, like every single one of the guys they were lean, they were strong, and they looked like studs. It just made you lean and strong. All right, so we did cal sessions, we had ins and outs, and we had drops. So I think I'll start by first talking about the pushing exercises that we did and how I do them now to make them more effective. All right, so let's start with push-ups. All right, so one of the things for all exercises is that I always try to find a way to make the range of motion as long as possible, right? So I always want to strengthen and lengthen the muscles at the same time. So I always try to use exercise variations where I can get a good stretch and a long range of motion, right? And that's so now basically for push-ups, what I do is I use yoga blocks so that I can get a better range of motion. Real simple. Just go down, get a good stretch, and come back up. And in addition to Going down as deep as you can, you guys can add pauses. So adding like a 1 to 3 second pause to the bottom position where your muscles are being stretched, that's a great way to improve your range of motion, and it's also a great way to build muscle. All right, so it's actually been proven now that hard contractions in a stretched position is not only the best way to improve flexibility, it's actually the best way to build muscle. All right, so another thing I do with these yoga blocks sometimes is I'll turn them this way so I can go even deeper. Good stretch, good posture, and then come back up. Big stretch, and come back up. All right, so for all exercises, push-ups included, you want to get a good stretch with everything, because that's where you improve flexibility the most, and that's also where you build the most muscle and strength. Another amazing tool that again is also proven to be one of the best ways to improve your strength and build muscle is negatives. Right? And negatives is basically the range of motion, the part of the movement where your muscles are being lengthened, right? Or in the case of bodyweight exercise, it's basically always the way down. So another thing that you can do is just get up to the top position and then cheat your way back down. So, and I actually use this like for the strength training program that I'm currently developing. I do a lot of 1-minute sets. And if I'm like on my third or fourth 1-minute set of doing, for example, like deep push-ups like this, I'll switch to just doing negatives basically. So I'll cheat my way up, control the way down, get a big stretch. I might take a breath or two and then repeat. Big stretch, hold it for a couple seconds, short break, and back at it. Now, so I think you can see that for the average person, you don't really need to go bench press in order to develop a good chest, shoulders, and triceps. I mean, like, I think this exercise right here, for example, with the feet on the floor, using a deep range of motion and then pausing at the bottom for a couple of seconds. If you try to do 4 or 5 sets of 20 reps or 15 reps with about 30 seconds of rest, it's gonna be a pretty amazing workout. All right, but so with that said, I'm gonna show you a couple ways to make this exercise both easier and harder using chairs. This is an easier variation of push-ups, and I actually personally use it. And if I'm doing like 1-minute sets, then I can actually get a really good workout with my hands elevated like this. And you can kind of like mix it up. You don't, just because, for example, just because you can do the hardest exercise variation, it doesn't mean that you shouldn't sometimes switch to an easier exercise variation and just rep out. And the pump is amazing. Big stretch. Big stretch. Push yourself up. Full range of motion. Good posture. Controlled negative. Big stretch for a couple of seconds. And drive yourself back up. Now, if you want to make the exercise harder, you can elevate your feet. Again, using blocks is nice because you can get a deeper range of motion. So that feels pretty amazing. You can vary the distance. So obviously if I place the blocks further away, if my arms are further, it's gonna sort of isolate the chest more and be more of a chest workout versus triceps. If I want to focus on my triceps more, I can use a closer grip. So that's one of my favorite techniques for just for regular old push-ups is using chairs and yoga blocks so that I can get a deeper range of motion. And again, if you place the blocks further apart, you're really going to hit your chest more. One of the things I wanted to add too is that, like, usually when I'm doing these calisthenics, I'm doing them for time sets, so that I'll do them for, usually anywhere from 30, or it depends, but anywhere from 20 to 60 seconds. And what I'll do is, before I hit muscle failure, I'll go ahead and switch to the easier variation so I can keep working. So I'm always basically like, I avoid hitting muscle failure so that I can maintain a even work tempo. So if I'm doing push-ups for a whole minute, I'm not just gonna go as fast as I can and then totally burn out so that I'm totally useless for the next 30 seconds or for the next 3 sets. Let me actually demonstrate the way I sort of pace myself through these workouts. And I do that, and I do this for all exercises. I'll do it for let-me-ups, I'll do it for squats, I'll do it for lunges. A lot of times, I'll do just 3 to 5 reps, take a short break for like 2 to 3 breaths, and then repeat. So, but you get the point. Basically, when I'm doing my workouts, which usually consist of time sets or interval sets, I pace myself. So I'll do 2 to 3 to 5 reps and then take a short break. 2 to 3 to 5 reps, take a short break. What I don't do is I go as fast as I can, hit muscle failure, and then I'm completely useless for the next 3 sets. All right, so talk about push-ups. Let's talk about Chinese push-ups next. For Chinese push-ups, we would count 5 hand lengths from our feet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right? And then we would form a diamond. And then we would place our foreheads into that diamond. And that's a crazy, tricep and shoulder exercise. I would say it's mostly a tricep exercise. You can make this exercise easier by elevating your hands, and of course also by using a wider hand position. So basically, to make Chinese push-ups easier, you can place your hands on a chair. Keep your feet relatively close. Push your hips back so that you get a good stretch through your hamstrings. Try to make your back straight. And then from here, with your hands together, just lower your head between your hands. If you want to make the exercise super hard, you can elevate your feet. Go. That's pretty hard. So that's the Chinese push-up. The Chinese push-up is a good tricep exercise that we use constantly while we were in training. But one of the things that I don't like it is that you don't really get a good stretch from it, right? So when I'm doing this here, that's not a full range of motion for my triceps. So that's sort of one of the negatives of the Chinese push-ups. But I think what we'll do is we'll do a live session in the future where we talk about my favorite bodyweight arm exercises for your biceps and triceps. All right. One of the exercises that I do use all the time is the military press. And the military press is for your shoulders, and it's basically a modified Chinese push-ups where your hands are shoulder width or wider apart. And for this, I also like to use something so that I can get a better range of motion. So you can count 5 hand lengths. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Push your hips back. And then from here, go down, pause, up. I have also done it this way. Again, like, you have to be careful, obviously, because if you mess it up, you're gonna hit your head. You can use chairs to make it easier. So this is going to be similar to a push-up, right? Except your feet are closer and you're pushing your hips back. And then from here, you just go down and push yourself back up. You can spread the chairs apart a little bit more, and that'll put more of an emphasis on your shoulders. So that right there, even at my fitness level, is a pretty good workout. So for example, like if I was to do that variation right there for, let's say 3 or 4 1-minute sets, that's gonna be a really proper shoulder workout. If you wanna make this exercise harder, it's gonna be, you do the same thing that you did with push-ups. You would elevate your feet and then use yoga blocks for your hands. And honestly, like I'm showing you guys these harder exercise variations, like with your feet elevated, you can get a really amazing workout using the easier exercise variations. And that's kind of like one of the reasons that, one of the ideas that prompted me to want to do this live session is that I think one of the most overlooked ways to develop strength, right? Like your ability, your work capacity, your injury resistance, your stress tolerance is through high rep, high volume calisthenics. You don't need to do these really fancy, difficult exercises, right? Like you don't need to be able to do pistols and handstand push-ups and front levers, back levers, muscle ups, etc. to get an incredible workout, even at higher fitness levels, all right? Because like how many people can really do 5 sets of 30 push-ups with 30 seconds of rest in between? You know, there definitely are people that can do it, but probably definitely most people cannot do it, especially not with good form. All right, and I think that's true for most bodyweight exercises, right? Like pull-ups, let-me-ups, dips, right? And let's actually talk about dips as well, and because I have started using dips again in this new exercise program that I'm developing. So what I usually do for dips is I use chairs. You know, it's kind of a judgment call. You have to use some common sense whether or not you feel comfortable using chairs. Obviously, the stronger and the more control you have, the more sort of margin of error you're gonna have. But again, like I said, most of the workouts that I'm doing are time sets, right? So I could probably do 30 nonstop dips, something like that. But what I've been doing is just negatives. I just do the negatives. I do it for a minute, rest, do another minute, rest, and I make sure that every single repetition, I get a really good stretch. Start from a locked out position, down slow, get a nice stretch, then I just cheat myself back up. Controlled negative, great stretch, back up. And the stretch to me is super important. And the reason it's super important to me, especially for chest exercises, is because posture is super important to me, right? Like me personally, I hate having a tight chest. Like I hate doing exercises that make my chest super sore and tight, because you'll see a lot of times like guys that work out a lot, they have tight pecs and it pulls the shoulders forward and it kind of like, it pulls everything out of alignment, and I personally hate the way it feels. And this is coming from a guy that has done thousands and thousands of push-ups. What's up, Martin? Svensson, Olaf, Steven, Emily. All right, so you can also do dips using suspension straps. Like I got some suspension straps behind me. That's actually that's harder because it's not stable. But again, you can just do the negative portion, or you can do assisted dips, of course, right? Like you can kind of help yourself with one leg. Like you can help yourself on the way down and you can help yourself on the way up, all right? Just make sure that every single repetition you're getting a good stretch and then you're going all the way back up. So those were really the three main pushing exercises that we use in the military. We did push-ups, a variety of push-ups, wide, close, regular. We did Chinese push-ups, and we did dips. We did them every single day. All right, and for pulling, we mostly just did pull-ups and chin-ups, which I think is incomplete. But again, I think you can get away with stuff like that when you're training 20-year-olds and you're also running and swimming. So I think the running and the swimming every single day helps to balance everything out. Make sure there are no surprises in there. Yeah? All right. For pull-ups, just like with dips, I also usually I go to the negatives straight away. I go straight to the negatives. I can probably these days, I don't know, I can probably do 15 if I train for 20 non-stop pull-ups, but I really like the negatives. So what I'll typically do is I jump up, control the negative, and I go all the way down. And I exhale at the bottom so that the exhale tightens your abdominals and it pulls your ribs down, right? So that's going to increase this angle here, so you get more of a stretch through your shoulders. So again, I use a variety of grips. I jump up, I control the way down, I get a full stretch at the bottom. A lot of times what you see people doing is stuff like this. And I think that's probably okay, but if you're gonna do that, you also wanna make sure that you're hitting the bottom range of motion. And actually one of the things that I sometimes play around with is just doing pull-ups at the bottom half. Because again, and the reasoning there is, one, I'm getting a better stretch. And again, studies show that you get more muscle growth when you contract the muscles in a stretched position, which would be the bottom part of the pull-up. And a lot of people were kind of like, when we reach over our heads for something like swimming, if you're trying to learn how to do a proper handstand and stuff like that, there's a lot of activities where you need good shoulder mobility, right? And the pull-up, the bottom of a pull-up is a great place to improve that shoulder flexibility and that thoracic spine mobility. So get a good stretch at the bottom, exhale, and then do your next rep. You can use bands, you can do, you can cheat your way up. There's all kinds of stuff that you can do. And again here, rather than just like burning out and doing as many as I can, I right away, I start with negatives and I find some sustainable pace that I hopefully can maintain throughout the entire workout. So a lot of times I'll just do like 1 to 3 reps, jump off the bar, take 2 or 3 seconds, or take 2 or 3 breaths before I do my next little mini set, right? And I do that for the entire duration of that, say, 1 minute set. Hope that makes sense. So yeah, in the military for pulling, we really just did pull-ups and chin-ups. And the ins and outs for us towards the end, I think was typically 15 pull-ups, 16, one for teamwork, and 16 chin-ups, depending on if it's an even day of the month or an odd day of the month. What else? Legs, right? For legs, the main exercises were, I would say, basically lunging. We did a bunch of lunging, front lunging, back lunging. Sometimes we did side lunging, but we did a bunch of lunging exercises and iron mics. We would do them with our hands behind our head, typically. And they would crush us with these exercises, right? So, which is not really a great thing to do. It's something that you can get away with if you're training fit 20-year-olds, but for the most part, when you're doing iron mics, you want to, or any kind of like jumping exercise, you want to be fresh enough so that you can safely absorb the force. So you don't want to, basically, like you don't want to go to muscle failure on it. The way I pace myself for iron mics when I'm doing, say, multiple 1-minute sets is, rather than doing them continuously, I'll actually place a knee down in between each rep, get like a little bit of a rocking motion, and then do the next one. And I kind of like that rocking motion as well to pace me. Whew. So iron mics, lunges. Let's talk about lunges real quick. You guys all know how to do lunges. We would typically do them with hands behind our head. Vertical torso, midsection tight. And we would do them alternating, right? Or sometimes we would step back and do them. Something that I love to do with lunges is use sliders. You know, or if you have a floor like this, you can put on your socks. And you can slide. And you can put your hands on your head, on your hips to make it more comfortable. And basically, midsection tight, torso vertical, perfect posture. Go really deep until the knee is over the ankle, right? Up. And then pull yourself forward again. Midsection tight. Go back as far as you can. Yep. And you're really going to feel that hamstring engage. And on the rear leg, you should have a really strong hip flexor stretch. So this is not only great for strengthening your legs and hamstrings, right? It's going to stretch your hip flexors and you're practicing good posture. And you're going to have to do back lunges for that. It's past 10 p.m. here. All right, I'm going to wrap it up here soon. The last exercise, the last main exercise that we used when I was a special operations trainee was the 8-count bodybuilder. And that was like the main way, if they just wanted to smoke us, we did the 8-count bodybuilder. And it was an 8-step movement that basically hits your entire body. And when I first did these, I absolutely hated them. I think they were so hard, but eventually I adapted, and it's a great exercise. All right, so you stand, you bend, you put your hands on the ground. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 1, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. 3. And this exercise, you have bending, you have a push-up, but this portion right here, right? That's actually really great for your core. So, if you guys ever want like a really quick workout and you don't have a lot of time, try doing a set of 30 nonstop 8-count bodybuilders. And if the push-up is too difficult for you, just control the way down and then cheat yourself back up. Ben Chambers is asking, do I have a preference for back lunges or forward lunges? Which do you feel is more effective? Back lunges are easier to do with correct form because your hips are traveling backwards. So I like back lunges. Also, like when you step forward from a back lunge, you're engaging the hamstrings more, which I like. So on a forward lunge, if you're doing it stationary, right? I go here, and now I'm pushing myself back. So that's more quadriceps. On a back lunge, boom, I'm stepping forward, so I'm having to pull with my hamstrings here. And I think one of the hamstrings are definitely more overlooked than the quadriceps. So me personally, I prefer the back lunge. Michael is asking if there's going to be a replay. We're going to post this, so you'll be able to watch it fully later. Abdul is asking, would you train chest or back more? Which is more important to you? I would train back more, actually. That's a good question. Because I think if you train your chest more, you're more likely to become out of alignment. Like, you don't ever see anybody that has their back is overdeveloped and has bad posture because of it. Like, I can't think of an example of that. But what you see all the time is somebody that does too many chest exercises and then their shoulders are rolled forward and they have bad posture because their chest is tight. So for that reason, I hate having a tight chest. And probably one of the reasons that that's so important to me is because as a trainee, they were always torturing us with all these different like push-up exercises. You know, for example, like they once made us do 1,000 push-ups before going home on Friday because we had too much tape on our snorkels. You know, crazy stuff like that. But back is more important than chest. Evie is asking, what did you eat for dinner? I had Thai food. I had rice with chicken and vegetables. So we had some soup, some coconut soup, and a couple other dishes, but I don't know what they're called. Can we have those workouts as a full video, and we can decide the variation? So Mo, like right now, I'm developing, in the app, I have workouts with all these exercises. The exercise program that I'm currently developing will release January, and in that exercise program, for most of the exercises, I give you the option of I give you variations basically. So, and not all, but most of my exercise programs, when I give you an exercise, I give you exercise variations during the tutorials so that you can choose between the different variations. So all these exercises are available as complete workouts and programs in my app. Brett asks, you mentioned that pull-ups and chin-ups were incomplete. What else would you recommend for pulls? Right, so for pull-ups and chin-ups, you're pulling straight down, basically, where your arms are in line with your body. You want some kind of like rowing type movement, which is pretty easy to demonstrate. Something like this, for example, right? Great exercise. At the top, you want to squeeze your shoulder blades together and then like pull your arms apart, sort of like you're ripping your chest, like you're ripping your shirt off, right? Like the Superman pose, so that you get that external shoulder rotation. Big stretch at the bottom. Pull yourself all the way up, and then like expose your big S. You can also do something like this. So I call those let me ins and let me ups. So you need some, for pulling, you should have something where your arms are overhead and also where your arms are perpendicular to your body. Right, because the pull-ups and chin-ups, they're not gonna really develop your upper back all that much. Which you need if you're doing a whole bunch of push-ups, for example. Like you need a strong, if you really want to have a big, strong chest with good posture, you're going to need a strong upper back, which is where the rowing comes in. Jamie asks, I do notice that I feel lunges more than even one-legged squats. Something about them for me. Lunges are my favorite exercises. And if you think about what a lunge is a big step, right? So it involves weight shifting. So lunges aren't just gonna make your legs stronger, they're gonna improve your posture, they're gonna stretch your hip flexors, which you probably need because you spend a lot of time sitting, and they involve weight shifting, right? So they're gonna improve your lateral stability and balance, which is really athletic. All right, guys. Okay. Best exercises for upper tricep strength. Upper triceps. I would probably say skull crushers, right? Like surface tricep extensions. Big stretch. And up. That's an amazing tricep exercise. So I guess those are called surface tricep extensions. You can superset those with basically diamond push-ups on an elevated surface as well. So basically, like you could do a set of those to muscle failure or close to it, and then immediately switch to doing close grip push-ups. And try doing it with your hands elevated on a chair or something like that, so you can get some higher reps and get a really good pump. Guyer's asking, what do you do for neck? I heard it's important to train neck, but find many are too hard. That's a great exercise. I keep it super simple. So you don't want to go to muscle failure, but I'll show you what I do. I have a little ottoman here. You can start with no weight at all, right? Hang from something, get a good stretch, and then just come up slightly past neutral. To start, try doing 2 or 3 sets of 20, all right? Once that becomes easy, you can use the weight of your arms. And eventually you can take something like, usually what I do is I take a pillow, I just basically I put a dumbbell on my forehead, and I do this. I go from the stretch position to slightly past neutral. And I do the same thing in a prone position. So here, again, like you can start without any weight. If that's too easy, let your chest hang off slightly, and then and eventually what you can do is on the way down, so once you're up, try to keep your head up and then pull your head down. Up and then pull your head down. So that you're getting the negatives. So I do yes and no's. So a lot of times there's so many different things that you want to do, and it's so hard to include everything that a lot of times for a lot of exercises, whenever I think of them, I'll just do like one hard set. But I'm not going to muscle failure. So I'll just do one hard set of that, like for yeses, and then I turn around and I do one hard set of no's, and that's usually enough. And then you have stuff like calf raises, for example, So when I think of it, I'll just do one hard set to failure on calf raises, one-legged calf raises and stuff like that. So that's usually how I use, like when I use a single set to failure is for like all the extra ancillary exercises. Would you recommend doing squats with bad knees or prefer lunges? I think you have to squat, and I think squatting can actually be great for your knees. And I'm glad you mentioned it. Again, like I'm in Thailand, so squatting is really part of the culture. It's how they sit on the ground, basically. It's not the only way they sit on the ground, but being able to spend time in a deep squatting position, right? And like eat a meal for 30 minutes is super common, right? Like my 65-year-old father-in-law can get into a perfect deep squat with his feet basically together in parallel, right? I'm not quite there yet. But with that said, I think a great way to squat is like find something to elevate your heels on. Like I recently bought this thing, right, for squats. You don't really need it. You could use anything like magazines or a couple of plates to put your feet on. But, you know, elevating your heels makes it much easier to get into a squat, right? And I think a lot of times the reason that we have knee, hip, and back problems is because we don't really get into like a squatting position like this, right? So what do? Like all day long, we're either standing or we're here, right? Because you're sitting at a desk. So you basically have half the range of motion that's never being used, right? Think about that. Like decades and years of half the range of motion of some of the most important joints are just not being used, right? So find something where you can elevate your heels so that you can get down into a full squat. And then spend a little bit of time every day in this position. All right, I do it every day, pretty much first thing in the morning because I think it feels good. I've also recently started playing around with squats where I go from the bottom position and I just basically stay in the bottom half and do squats. If you have bad knees, I don't know if you're gonna be ready for that, right? So you're gonna have to play around with it and listen to your body. But I definitely think you need to use the full range of motion. Another thing that I do, aside from squatting, is I spend time in kneeling positions, right? So I meditate most days, about 25 minutes. The first 5 minutes, I'm in a position like this. So I'll spend 2 minutes with my toes in the ground like this, which if you're not used to it, is agonizing, right? But it's really good for ankle and toe mobility, which is super important for being mobile, right? But also in this position here, again, my knees are in full flexion, which a lot of times like we're completely missing that. So for my meditation, I do 2 minutes like this. I do 3 minutes like this. And then I'll do another 20 minutes. And I usually sit on my yoga blocks. And I'll switch between sitting in this position, like an L-sit position, Indian style sit, and I'll switch to the other side as well, right? So I use my meditation time as to improve my mobility, right? I'm doing seated kneeling positions. I'm kind of doing like the 90-90 sit and also like the Indian style sit. And I do deep squats. So I'm not a physical therapist and I can't really diagnose you properly, but I would recommend playing with those ranges of motion. All right, guys, I'm gonna call it. If you have more questions, you can write them in the comments. I'll come back, check the comments, and try to answer you guys. And we will be posting this on the page so you can reference it or watch it later if you came late. And hey, and if there's anything that you guys would like me to make a video about, I'm open to ideas, right? Just I'm totally like send all and every idea you have for me to go live and create content for you guys. Let me know what you guys want. All right, guys, cheers.